Hi, this is Philip Crone, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Success, Hope, and Encouragement. This is video number 8, Meditation and Success. So, meditation, scary word, kind of out there for a lot of people. I have been meditating pretty seriously for about 4 years, and the results that I've gotten from this practice are unbelievable. So I'm a skeptic, like a lot of you probably, who may have never meditated, maybe never looked into it. Sounds like one of those Buddhist type of things. It is, but it isn't. But let me tell you my experience and maybe give you some tips and secrets of maybe how you can incorporate this into your own life. So, as many of you, if you've been watching my channel, you know this is about success and a lot of success secrets and tips that I've used in my life. So names kept popping up to me on the internet or what have you of all these famous people that meditate. And much like all of you, meditation, what is that? It's Hare Krishna or something. But then when I started digging into it, I realized all of these famous names. So just Google famous people who meditate. And that's clue number one. Why are all these people famous and why are all these people meditating? Long and short of it is when I looked into it, I like to explain it this way. Couple things, two main points here. One is the brain, which is, the central nervous system comes from, and all of our great ideas is a bit like a muscle. And when I started out, age 23 or so, trying to be successful, I knew I had to give an incredible amount of effort. If you don't give it your all, you're not going to get that rocket ship off the ground if you're, trying to become successful or like I was, a millionaire before I was 30. But if you're trying and you're pushing as hard as you can, the brain's like a muscle. It gets tighter. It gets tighter and tighter. And it gets so tight to the point where you get all this noise in the brain and the chatter and I got to do this and do that and things are scattered. Well, you get to the point where the brain is so tight that you can't have any flow of thoughts or ingenious thoughts or peace or tranquility. So one thing that I learned in meditation is if you look at that brain and if you look at it as a very tight muscle, it will allow that muscle to relax. And once it relaxes, then it can flow. And then a lot of these ingenious ideas and sense of balance and peace can come into our life if our lives are a little bit out of control. The other thing is if you study meditation, you'll realize that the key of meditation is to be in the present. That means we're not worried about the future. We're not thinking or feeling regret about the past. We're totally in this moment in time. You hear a lot of famous things that this moment in time is all we have. Well, as you may know from my previous videos, I'm a Christian. And I believe very much in God and Jesus. And if you study, the Holy Trinity and what have you, you realize that God doesn't work on time. He only works in the present time, and He's always in the present time. So I like to view meditation as the closest that we can get in a human form to God, because He's always in the present form. So we're not worried about the future. We're not worried about the past. We're just here right now. And that's an incredible hard place for a lot of people to get, because many of us, our lives are so much chaos or we have so much regret from the past that all we're thinking about is I can't pay that bill or this person's mad at me or whatever it is, but that's all in the future. There's things that we're worried about, and if you can strip all of that away and get into the silence or get into the space, a lot of beautiful things can happen. My wife and I were on our Christian cruise this summer to Alaska, one of the singers, and it was Mrs. Collingsworth for the Collingsworth family, gave a little bit of a speech about the space between the notes by saying in music, you can never have music if there wasn't a space between the notes. Now, it may seem very short, but that's a little bit about what meditation is all about, is between all the chaos in our worlds and our life, that we've got to have a little space between all that chaos so that things can come into order and make sense. And, that may or may not be enough to get some of you to meditate, but let me kind of go into a few things in my life of how it's changed me. So if you dive into meditation and you start learning it on your own, you'll realize that there's a little organ in our brain called the pineal gland, and it's very, very interesting if you'll study this. This dates back for thousands of years. You know, if you're into the Egyptians or previous civilizations, you know, why do all of these artist depictions have, you know, the little, I call it the Indian dot, or the thing pictured on the forehead? Well, the bottom line is that the pineal gland is in the middle of your brain, and this is what is more commonly known as the third eye. So what that really means is that when we meditate or when we dream, that we're actually using this third eye. And those people that have gotten into the brain and have dissected it have realized that it's got a lot of the same properties that the human eye does. It also has some chemicals, and I'm not going to get in over my head here, that are a little bit like LSD, but this is where a lot of the, I guess, the luminous dreams and a lot of the creative thoughts can come from if we can activate the pineal gland. And one of the ways you activate the pineal gland is through the art of meditation. Also, you might find it interesting, those of you who want to dig real deep, look into some David Wilcock videos on YouTube, particularly when you go back to the Catholic Church, and you'll see all of the artifacts that have depictions of the pine cone on it. Meaning that this is the device, your pineal gland, that allows you to communicate and contact through meditation and prayer with God. So I like to think meditation is, you know, not some hairy Krishna thing, but my goal is to live in the, I guess, the stillness and the presence so that I'm able to pray and communicate with God. So a little physiology there. I'm not going to get it over my head because I'm not an expert in that. I'm just more of a practicer of this. But study the pineal gland, and I think you're going to find some interesting combinations of success and why people do it and how the pineal gland works. So in meditation, I like to view that what we're trying to do is shut down your supercomputer. And if you view the brain as a supercomputer, which it is, you may or may not realize this, but without you even attempting this, your brain is doing hundreds of millions of operations per second. If you don't realize that, cut off your hand or your arms or your legs. Your brain is connected to every living cell in your body, and it's doing all of this automatically. It's regulating, you know, your heart and your lungs and your heartbeat and your body temperature, all these other things. And it gets affected by all of this, what we call chatter and noise. So when we meditate, what we're trying to do is to be silent, get in the present, and allow, you know, the brain, the supercomputer, to operate normally without all of this artificial interference. So let me tell you my experience with meditation, how I started physically doing it, and this may or may not be what works for you. You know, if you Google a lot of meditation, you'll see 100 different ways of why people do it. But the thing that was most effective, and I struggled very hard at this for a couple of years because I'm kind of a hyperactive person, and for me to shut everything down and be still or silent without my mind having a lot of chatter was one of the most difficult things I could do. And it took me a couple of years to get to the point where now I can get there. But like anything in life, and I use the word it's difficult, if you can overcome those difficulties, great rewards can happen. So when I meditate, I have a chair here in my office that I use every morning, and I can't quite get in the lotus position, but I sit down, and I actually have a mask that I put on to cover the light on my eyes, and I will sit there and I'll start doing my deep breathing and start relaxing. And when I close my eyes, and again, I don't want to throw anyone off here, I'm just telling you what I experience. After a period of time, either it's through my mind, my third eye, or what have you, in my mind, it almost is like I'm in outer space, and I can see a little bit like Star Wars, the little Stardust starting to come, physically can see the Stardust coming at me. And the little trick that I used to really get me to the point where I really realized I was first meditating was, I remember I was sitting down there very silent, trying to meditate, trying to be in the present, and your mind starts flowing around, that's okay. Just let things come and let them go. Don't worry about it, and try to be silent. And also, by the way, I've had the same music playing in the background. I found on YouTube, you can find all kinds of meditation music. You can focus on that as well, but it helps drown out the other sounds that may happen around the room. But I remember I pretended I was on a spaceship and I wanted to get closer to God, because for some reason I felt like I was out in space and I wanted to communicate with God and pray with God. And so somehow I pretended I was in this little spaceship, because I remember I'm seeing all of these little space particles come at me, kind of like Stardust. And I'll speed this up a little bit, because as I was doing this, the first sensation I had once I kind of felt this was I had this weird feeling that I was beyond Earth, and I was sad that I wasn't here at Earth. And I was sad because everyone, my family was here, and for some reason I felt disconnected. And I know that's a little freaky, I'm just sharing you what happened. Then, probably one of the most amazing things happened, and if you Google meditation and some of the effects, this is definitely one of them that a lot of people have. As I was pretending I'm in a spaceship and pretending I'm trying to get closer to God, I saw this, I guess for lack of a better word, a star in the background. So as I'm sitting there meditating with my eyes closed, and I can see I guess I'll call it the stardust coming at me, I saw this little flash of a star way out there in the horizon. All of a sudden, as I'm focusing on it, it kept getting closer and closer. And maybe, and again, I'm a little of a, the sense of time is not very good. I set my timer for 30 minutes, and now 4 years into it, that 30 minutes feels like about 5 minutes. But back to the little star. The star kept getting closer and closer and closer, to the point where, and this was probably about 3 years ago, the star turned into like a bright diamond. The best way I can describe it physically is, I'm in a large church here in the area, and when the band's playing, they have the little spotlight that flashes at you that can kind of hurt some people's eyes. It's kind of that light, and it was diamond-like. It was the most clear flash of continuous light that I'd ever seen in my life. And of course, first time this happened, I was pretty freaked out. And if you want to dig into this and look into chakras and what have you, there's some explanations behind this, some affirmations that you're doing the right thing. And the point I'm really trying to make here is, I get that every time I meditate now. Now I'm at the point 3 years later where it doesn't freak me out, and it's something I focus on, and it's not constant. I could probably get that little star or bright diamond to show up and be in a position where I can see the bright light for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes at a time, and then it sort of fades away. But during this whole time, that 30 minutes honestly feels like it's about 5 minutes. And then when the music shuts off, I'm always in a sense of, wow, I'm back here again. So I don't know how crazy that sounds. I'm just honestly telling you what I go through. And I don't want to tell anyone that you need to meditate just because you want to see a bright, shining diamond. What I can tell you is, in all the years I've been doing it now, which is going on 4, that I also realized if you go back to my other videos, I've been jogging for 37 or so years. I've now realized that I meditated in my jogs without realizing I was meditating. Meaning I'd be looking at a tree and thoughts would come into my mind, and before I'd know it, a mile had gone by and I hadn't even realized I'd been jogging. Now, why? This is the magic that comes from all of this. For whatever reason, during all the years that I've been jogging, and now the 4 years that I've been meditating, many times, and you can't want this to happen, it just has to happen. And this is kind of why I think meditation is weird, because it comes without effort. So sometimes it takes a lot of effort not to have effort. But many times when I will be in that point of meditating, and without the effort, just an incredible flash of inspiration or thought comes through me, and it starts growing, and it becomes one of those things that I end up doing. If you'll study, I know, like Tom Petty just died, and if you'll read his show on Netflix right now. He said many of his songs just appeared to him, you know, out of the blue. Well, where does that come from? I don't know. Well, he meditated an awful lot, and I think this is one way to clear off this local chatter where whoever's communicating or however thoughts come, this is how a lot of these people get to that position where they're kind of in the present and the brain is working at a different level, and however these thoughts come, they happen many, many ways to these kinds of people. So as freaky as that sounds and as hard as that is me to put out there, I did want to tell you that that is my actual experience, and I'm not sure you'll have the same experience, and I don't want to scare anyone away from that, but hopefully if you can go on to the internet and Google all the people who are successful with meditation, you may or may not have the benefits that I have. You may have different ones. I think it's somewhat of unique. But another attribute, as I've been meditating now for 4 years, and one of the keys of meditation is to react to things, just observe them for what they are. That things aren't really good, bad, or ugly. They are just things, and we create the illusion, or we create the reaction of them being good or bad. And I've kind of taken that into my real life where, yes, it's fun to get excited, and certainly you can feel joy, you can feel sadness and all these other natural emotions, but you start to view things a little bit differently. And I think that's one of the other attributes that a lot of people have found in meditation. So I think that's about all I want to say on meditation, and it's probably something that I'm going to continue to do for the rest of my life. It's a practice that I do pretty much every morning for about 30 minutes before I go for my jog, and now it's at the point where it's not hard to do. I hate to say it's easy, but I want to do it now, and it's become a habit, which is one of the things that I preach in life. So that is all I want to say on meditation. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.